Okay, we're going to be getting into our challenge and show and tell and tips and tricks here. And our challenge for this month is figured wood. And I saw a lot of you all brought stuff that is more where the figuring is the result of you guys manipulating colors and contours and what have you.
Somebody was figuring. I didn't. I got lucky.
Some of us were good citizens and adhered to wood figure. If nature didn't put it there.
Are you feeling less confident about what you brought now? Is that what that is?
Not less confident, just less significant. Somebody's going to raise their hand and say, well, look, why didn't you didn't put any color in it?
You like just bring a board? Is that what you
Right, but an attractive board.
Yeah, nice, very nice. Highly figured.
Round and round.
Yeah.
Yeah, describe a circle on it. Okay, next month our challenge is going to be an inlay where we want to lay, I forget if it was that metal inlay or
Whatever you like.
okay. Any kind of wood inlay, and again, you can't just raise the wood with the chisel and then put it back down again and glue it and say it's inlaid. No shortcuts on this. I'm curious to see what people use as a medium for inlay. You know, I'm sure Thomas has about 9 different things he could use, granular stuff and metallic stuff and
Depends on what you smoked the day before.
And then April, our challenge is going to be, we did it last year too, it's April Fool's. It's basically make something that has no function or couldn't perform the function that you might look at it and say, oh, I know what this is, but lo and behold, like this, basically a, you know, a funnel or something, but it looks like a coffee cup. That's what I made last year and had no bottom in it. So get creative on something that has no function. And sure enough, somebody in the crowd will find a function for it. It wouldn't be a very appropriate thing. Okay. We, as usual, will defer to the online people for showing us what they want to. Do we have any hands raised for show and tell, challenge, or tips and tricks?
Jim Bowman.
Am I supposed to speak now?
Well,
Forever hold your peace.
now would be a
That's
bad
going to
time.
be difficult. That's going to be difficult. I'll share my figured wood thing. Is that cool?
Sure, we're doing it all at one time.
Okay. Hopefully you're seeing that.
Yep.
Very nice.
Three-wing emergent bowl. I do not know what the wood is. Sorry, I didn't mark this one. It was on my pile and I turned it. So, don't know what it is. One more. The guys that are on Thursday morning will have seen this already. This was a piece of old oak crotch that was given to me by a guy from up near State College. And I turned an emergent bowl as per Mike Peace's way of doing little emerging bowls like this. But this flame was really awesome. So I had a good time with it. Those are my 2 pieces.
And how big are those 2 pieces?
Yeah, that's a good question. The small one I just showed you, which is behind me, is like 3 by 5, and then only 2 inches high or something like that. So it's small. The other crotch bowl, I should have written it down. It's more like 10 inches. If you measure tip of wing to tip of wing, the bowl itself is like 6 or 8 inches, 6 inches, and it's only 3 inches deep. So.
Questions for Jim?
Nice.
Thank you, Jim.
Very nice.
You're welcome.
These are probably more show and tell than challenge. John Kelsey gave me a nice piece of pear that was much larger than this when I started. I reoriented it on the lathe because I didn't like how it was way off balance, and so it got much, much smaller. Haven't turned too many natural edge bowls, but miraculously the bark stayed on it, and and I had a hell of a time with the wings and the tool, and I just didn't take the time that I should have, I guess, to sand that out, and I couldn't get the tool mark out of it while it was spinning. So.
Send it to the camera. In front of you. That's it. That's it. Okay, thanks.
So this might qualify as interesting wood. This is a piece I showed a few months ago after I returned from David Ellsworth's class, but I had not sanded it. And it has crazy figure in it. It was pretty tricky to turn. It's got a bunch of voids in it, but I sanded it the best I could. It's not wonderful, but it certainly wasn't sanded on the lathe because we don't do that down at David's place. So that's
finish it off with.
Well, David said he recommended that when I showed it to him, he goes, "Well, why don't you take it home and sand it and put a wipe-on poly on it," which I had never used, and it shows. I just didn't like it. I mean, I'm used to using Odie's oil or something like that, which is much more forgiving than wipe-on poly. I also tried, I think I tried wipe-on poly on this one as well. So that is highly figured, although I didn't do it specifically for the challenge. And then I had a bunch of black cherry that had been cut down, and it had a weird, the way the guys that took the trees down cut the branch, the limbs. So I had to turn, I was going to turn natural edge, but this piece I couldn't, so I just turned to cut edge. So it's very slim, but it turns out the grain was somewhat interesting.
You got it centered up nice.
And unfortunately there was a crack in the piece of wood, but I
Put
still...
it back the other side too, so it stays symmetrical.
Like that? So anyhow, those are my three pieces.
Now, how do you tell black cherry from bird cherry or whatever you want to call it if you see a standing tree? Anybody know?
Yes.
Boy.
Not now, boy, not now.
So your primary indicator for a tree that's going to be of any use to you, a black cherry tree, be sure it's black cherry bark once it's gotten some maturity to it. Then you can also do a little defining by leaves, but bark is the most reliable. So any tree that's got a peely bark on it, if it's immature and it means under 12 inches, then it's more than likely going to be ornamental. If it's in a yard or near a yard or could have been planted by someone, it's definitely an ornamental. Black cherries, they always get height. A short cherry tree would be 30 feet. At 18 inches in caliper at 3 feet, you're looking at between 30 and 50 feet in height. Even with a crotch, so they're going to be sizable. Otherwise, you can't always tell when you look at the wood after it's been cut. You can tell, but you need a trained eye. But avoid the ornamental cherries. It's not worth it.
Well, I've seen cherry that has I'll call it almost like a birch tree kind of bark.
That's
You know,
ornamental.
it lays smooth,
Yep.
but peels at corners, and it has heavy horizontal, I'll call it veins.
Right.
And then other cherry has a bark almost like a walnut or something.
That's black
Not
cherry.
very,
That's black cherry. And if that's black cherry.
Black cherry has little round specks on the bark. I mean, the bark is chips, an inch and a half diameter.
Right. Right.
All over the tree.
It's a coarse bark, broken coarse bark.
And you'll know it's ornamental cherry if you put it on the lathe and you try to turn it, it flies apart.
Right.
That's how you know. It's black cherry if it stays together. It's not if it flies apart because they all have ring check and you can't.
What if you're the kind of turner that can make anything come apart?
Well, then you have 3 or 4 plastic surgeons on call.
Okay. Who's next? We'll go across the front here. Rick.
So last month I was doing the mid-century modern piece for a guy, which took me a little while to do. And I got done with that, and I'm like, I just want to turn a simple bowl. Just put it on the lathe and just not think. So I picked up a piece of walnut that I'd kicked around the shop a couple times and turned it. And when I got the outside done and put the oil on it, I kind of felt like the 12-year-old boy who found his dad's Playboy stash. Just the way that the grain popped. And it's just, goes everywhere. So, so I got lucky that, something to kill my brain for a couple minutes. This is just oil and wax. Just a little bit of oil and some carnauba. So, but yeah.
I love what you did to the bottom.
I've only been turning for about a year, and seeing a lot of the videos online on YouTube, they're always gluing things up. So I started to do that, and I glued up this piece here, and when I started turning it, I couldn't believe how the pattern started to come out. I didn't see it in the block. So that came out, and that was the first one I turned with the glue up.
Would you hold the piece face open toward the camera?
All right, there you go. I don't know if you can see inside.
Help viewers see how the laminate.
Yeah, you can see inside.
So that was the first one, but I didn't have the seams perfect because there's like 6 or 7 different pieces of wood. I glued it up, then I'd cut it and glued it up and cut it and put it together, and I didn't see how it was going to come out. So then I said, let me try another one, same glue up, but this I didn't want to do it the same way, so I did it a little bit different angle on it, but it's the same basic glue up. So then I was sitting there, I'm looking at, and this one here, I still have to put some better finish on it. It's not done. So then I was sitting there in my living room and looking at it, and I said, well, I was going to stack them. And then I said, that looked pretty cool to me. So now I'm thinking that maybe the next time I do this, I would make them so they would stack and fit on top of each other. And I got that idea from Eastern Indian food containers. When they would go places, they would stack them all up and they'd have a thing. And I kind of like that idea, and so I was going to do that again, maybe out of a different wood, and maybe keep stacking them. I could go as high as I wanted and change the shape each one. Top one would have some kind of a finished finial on it. So that's what I did. This piece here, it was just a piece of cedar that I picked up in a pile over here. And I've never turned cedar before, and that looked kind of nice. I kind of like the way the pattern came out. And
This was the aromatic.
yeah, it's the aromatic cedar. It had a small split on both sides, and I put some CA glue in it. And then after it was finished, I didn't know, I wanted to keep the aromatic cedar, but I was afraid with the split, so I went ahead and put a finish on it to hopefully it wouldn't crack anymore. So then, again, going back to gluing things up, I found this wood, and it was a little 2-inch square blocks at Woodcrafters, and they called it Applejack. So I got 4 of those blocks, and then when I came back to the shop, I went and put some maple in between it, glued it up, and turned this little bowl, which is almost like you were saying for a challenge in April. What's it for? I don't know. So then I'm looking at it, and it just didn't seem finished. So then I put this little finial thing on the top of it. Now I don't know if it looks something like a carnival or a holy hand grenade. One of the two. I'm thinking more like a holy hand grenade. So that's was the last piece. And I guess maybe this would be for your challenge, you know. That's it.
Pick a third bowl and call it a romance.
Thank you.
What's the finish on those?
Waterlock.
Okay.
Gloss.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were saying that one time you like glossy things. I did too. I like shiny
That's
things.
what I had.
First of all, my 10-year-old son, who's in 4th grade, in his social studies class, the assignment was to do a project based on a 1700s apprenticeship program. What would they make as an apprentice in the 1700s? So when he came home from school and said what the project is he has coming up, I said, well, I have an idea. So,
How old is this boy?
10.
How much did you charge him to become your apprentice?
600 a day?
Yeah. Yeah. So he did, well, I told him the idea, presented the idea about doing a stool, and he was on board with that. So he rough turned the legs, and I finished turning them, and then we kind of helped each other sanding them and getting them completely smooth, because I'm not a big fan of spindle turning. But, so the legs are sapele, and the top is teak wood. I had this big 2-foot square slab of teak wood that I found at Lowe's a few years ago. It was 1 inch thick, and it had these 2-inch wide strips that are just glued together. So I just cut two 12-inch squares, and I turned the grains perpendicular to each other, glued them together to get a 2-inch thick top. And then I drilled the holes on the drill press, just made a slat of 15-degree sled to drill the holes through the top. The wedges are maple, and the finish on it is we put 3 coats of white on poly on as the finish. So, and he got an EE on for the project, which means exceeds expectation.
Nice.
Okay. That's that one. This guy, I just happened to turn it actually just last week and a half ago. Well, week and a half ago, the tree was cut down by a tree guy, friend of mine. And he posted a couple pictures of this wood on social media, and so I reached out to him and see if I could have some of it. And, well, then I saw after I had turned this that was this month's challenge, so it actually just worked out. But, sorry?
Mulberry.
That's what I'm hoping somebody can tell me.
Like the Osage.
He said he has never seen this before.
No, there's two domestic woods that would be that, Osage or mulberry. But what was the bark like? Was there any bark on it?
Yeah, the bark is still on it. It's really smooth.
It's smooth?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was probably an immature mulberry.
It was a big tree. I mean, down at the base, some of the areas, this thing
But it
was
was
3
smooth.
feet. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I've turned Osage, well, I think it's Osage, and it doesn't look...
Osage has the most obnoxious coarse bark. It's as deeply furrowed as locust.
Okay.
It's you can't miss Osage.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have no idea what it is. But the figure on it, on this crotch piece, was pretty amazing. But it is moving. It cracked here. There's a couple other cracks showing up, and it actually... This thing was smooth when I finished it yesterday, and it's rippled now. So, and the finish on that is, and it didn't do that yesterday. The finish on it is Axe abrasive paste and wax on the finish. And then this guy is a piece of rotted out locust that I found in the woods down in Maryland a month ago or so, and decided, well, first of all, I was going to try to turn it naturally until I was working on trying to get a tenon on the bottom, and I realized, no, this thing is not going to be a natural turning. So I cut it down and dumped some epoxy on it and finished it out in that way. It is the hardest thing I have ever turned. Turning the outside of this thing, I mean, any tool I put to it, carbide, it didn't matter. It just took the edge off like that. Traditional tools, forget it. I ended up using carbide, but it dulled those in no time too. It was awful. This is some kind of locust, I'm not sure.
Henry, I don't know if you know this or other fellows know this, but when you've got wood that's starting to decay, or the bark, you've left some bark or whatever on, that's the enemy of a sharp edge. The
Right.
spalt lines are mineral. but it's not wood anymore. A lot of people aren't aware of that. So that's going to make part of your challenges. Locust is a very hard wood, but you've got some other challenges in that.
And the way locust rots from the inside out. But originally I was hoping to do have a lid on the top here, but there's something, I kind of dished out the top in order to get a tenon in here. And at that point I realized I shouldn't have done that, because then I could have just done a flat lid and just put a little piece of wood as a knob on the top of it. But by that point I thought it was too late, because I didn't want to lose this arch in here. I was
like the wave.
Right.
Looks like the end of the Eagle season.
Yeah. So, anyway,
Is it a different epoxy than you normally use?
No, the epoxy turned really nice. It's designer epoxy. They're thick sets.
But it just turned out harder than normal?
It was the wood that just, like, I could turn the epoxy across the top. I could turn that. It turned like butter. But as soon as I hit the wood, the inside this was not a fun piece to turn. With the depth, it's 6 inches in diameter and 6 inches deep. So with that depth in relation to the diameter, and the inside does follow the outside profile very nicely. I tried really hard to get that, but anyway. So I don't know, I still think it should have some kind of lid on it. I just haven't gotten around to that yet, and I haven't fully decided what I want to do. I know what
Yeah.
I tried that tonight. My wife has these short string lights that go in a wine bottle. It has basically a cork on the top to put down in there. But I put it in there, and I was like, well, I'm underwhelmed, so I took it out. It did look cool. It would look nicer if it had a lid.
You put M&Ms in it, it'll be fine.
Everyone will like you.
No one's ever complained about a bowl with
if,
M&Ms in
if
it.
somebody wanted to do a pierced lid, that would look really cool.
There's M&Ms in that sucker. I'll take it home and think about it. Sure.
I don't know if I have figure, but I've had a lot of spalted ash, and it can be my nemesis, and I've thrown a lot away because it either cracks or it's just so punky that no matter what I tried to make a finish smooth or to make the wood smooth, I just kept getting all the grain tear out. But I was able to figure out how to sharpen a scraper to do shear scraping, and I actually brought a piece along that was really super punky, and I just used that shear scraping with the scraper, and it just got it real glassy smooth. So I've been doing that now. So this is a piece of that spalted ash, and I think Carl just mentioned that this is like a mineral, the spalting part, and you can see the dark part when you sand. The dark part actually rises above the white part of the wood because it's so hard. So anyway, it's a simple bowl. This is the same wood here, and this is heavily spalted. Some of this wood came out of my neighbor's forest, and it was just ash. Our ashes are dying off. The borer is bringing disease and killing our ash trees. But anyway, he's got a lot of ash laying around, and this might have been on the ground. These logs, they were about this big. They might have been on the ground for 2 years, 3 years maybe. And I'd cut them up about maybe a year ago. And this one I turned thin. I was able to shear scrape it nice and smooth, and then I sanded it with Danish oil, wet sanded it with Danish oil, and it got even smoother, and then I just put a little bit of carnauba wax on it. And anyway, I don't know if it counts as figured. I mean, there is figure in it, but there's also a lot of spalt. And this is the piece that I at the dump down behind the airport where I can take brush and clippings. I'm always on the lookout for people dump logs and not supposed to. And I found this, I think it was cherry, and we cut it up here maybe 2 months ago, and it has some nice figure in it. And so anyway, I started turning this piece. There were a lot of checks, so by the time I got rid of all that, I ended up with this shape. And it's natural edge, but I picked the bark off. And I still have to work, the foot's still on it. I still have to work on figuring out a way to get the bottom cleaned out. So I got some ideas from Angelo. I think I'm going to make a small scraper and get in there and try to clean it up and finish it up. So anyway, that's what I've been doing.
First off, on tips and tricks, I was inspired last month with Rick's presentation on his sanding drum, and so I put together a 24-inch powered by the lathe. And for folks who, let's see, I got another piece down in here. Oh yeah. I'm aware that you can buy a tap and a die if you want to do your threads. Cost you $50 from Tay Tool. This cost about $2 from Paul B. Zimmerman's. And if you file across the threads, you can get it started.
And 1 1/4 or 1?
That's a 1x8. 1x8, which matches my lathe. And so, you know, sometimes I'll make the plate and tap it, and on occasion for others I'll just buy the nut and screw it on. So for the tips and tricks part. And then yeah, I just really enjoy, you know, looking for the grain in wood. And this one I think was mahogany. It's got some nice grain to it. The bowl out of the square. This was an early one. Tom, you were talking about getting things down at the airport, Manham Township. I dropped some things off there at their compost park, and I see some red in the end of a log. And yeah, it's box elder. And that's spalted maple from the backyard. Whoops, get it over here to the camera. Spalted maple from the backyard. This one was just a piece of pine or spruce pine, I think it was. Turned the bowl and then felt it really needed a lid. Turned the lid out of what had a piece of cedar there and showed it to my wife. She didn't like it. So then we sprayed it black and put a little finial on top. That one again, I like the grain in it, and I don't completely remember. I almost want to say that's red oak, but I think it might be honey locust. I'm not sure of that one. And then one more piece of spalted maple. So those are the couple things. But the other question I have for the group, I'm in the process of making a pedestal dining room table. And I've cut my 8 sides for the pedestal and put the bird's mouth in. And now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to glue this thing up. So initially thought I would just glue it all, use some ratchet straps and try to pull it tight, but my ratchet straps won't go to 7 inches. Then I was reading online and somebody was talking about making an angle block, and you glue up 2 pieces at a time, and then you take 2 of those and glue them up, and eventually you've got your 8 together. As I was driving over this evening, I thought about what if I would just take a cord, glue everything up, take a cord and then crank it real tight.
Twist it, bring 2 around, twist it around
Twist
the
it
block
tight.
and twist it.
Do it all, yeah, with one glue. Okay.
Get 8 really strong guys.
Feed a lot of beer.
Nothing to do.
Each one grabs.
Alan,
Hey.
what's your diameter? Because I couple together big hose clamps. You can
Okay.
get pretty large diameter. It might take a couple of them depending on your diameter, but they work great.
7 inches is going to be the diameter.
Oh, yeah, you could get by with 2 4-inchers or 2 5-inchers.
Okay.
And, that's what I do on my big ones. So.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, there's another one.
I do 7-inch birdhouses that are 9 stays with 2 large hose clamps and
Okay.
piece of cake.
Crank it down real tight then.
Yeah, absolutely. Use a put a put a bit in your drill,
Yeah.
like a
5/16,
sock.
something like that, whatever it is.
Yeah, 5/16.
You're gonna turn it anyways. So if you leave marks on it from the clamps, it won't be a problem. But you can get it tight. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, here's one more that I forgot. A little box that's got some nice figuring on it. So, anyhow, thank you.
Alan, I bet your wife was happy you cleaned off the shelf of all that stuff.
The happiness will be brief.
How did you hold the sandpaper onto the?
Yeah, actually, this was a piece from one of Mike's, but I've got it held on with 2 screws on each end. Now it's not as tight as I would like it to be, and so I need to work at it some more, trying to pull that down across there. But then I also, similar to what Rick did, I've got the 2 pieces of MDS on a piano hinge, and I used 2 bolts. But anyway, yeah.
Use some spray adhesive.
I thought about
Both
that.
sides of that. Wait 15 minutes
And then just,
and wrap it.
yeah.
If your joint is good, it'll never have a problem.
For me, being a new wood turner, I found a wedge of a tree they cut down and ended up making a live edge bull wow of it. What came out really interesting to me is, see on the inside, it has a lot of figure on the one side and just a regular on the other side. And I just thought that came out really interesting, the way that showed up. You can see it also on the outside. So it just fascinated me, taking a cutout from a piece of tree they cut down and making a bowl out of it. The other one I did was a piece of box elder with a figure in there, which will turn brown, but it's got some bug holes in, so my friends were teasing me that I can't put any cereal in there. But I could use it for a funnel if I really wanted to, I guess.
I hear M&Ms are good.
M&Ms are good. They're small enough.
Especially if there's a hole in the bottom.
It's not big enough, luckily. Yeah. This one I used walnut oil and beeswax, and I got tried and true for a Christmas present, so I thought I'd try it on this. So those are the 2 finishes for that. Thank you. Any other questions?
Listening to the punky ash, the spalted ash, this is a product that's not well known in. Never comes up in the forums and everything. It's made by a company in Allentown. It's a water-based polyurethane, and I just stumbled onto it in a newspaper ad from our local hardware year, probably 10 years ago. It's a no odor product, not like the Minwax wood hardener, which is a lacquer. I've had this bottle for about 10 years. It's still perfectly fine. I think Home Depot sells it in the States. You can buy it in large quantities. It's called PC Petrifier. It's an awesome product for spalted wood. Doesn't stain, doesn't discolor. Anyway, just thought of that while I was watching.
Thank you. Is that a water consistency?
Yes, yeah, very thin. Just paint it on. It does need it overnight to cure, but it's really simple to use. You use it just before your final cuts, not you don't want to put it on early. Just when you get to the final cut, or not before the final cut, your final shape.
You guys talked about magazines. Did you ever read Mad Magazine when you were a kid? A picture of Alfred E. Newman in the Spalding in the Birch Bowl. You see the image?
Yeah.
That's all I had. It was kind of fun.
Go figure. Yeah, go figure.
Oh, go figure. Okay.
So this is a piece of black locust. We had a black locust tree come down our yard. Has a nice, this was the crotch section, so it had nice feathering in there, and then had a bark inclusion, which you can really see on the back. Not just yet. Nope. One of the interesting things about black locust is it fluoresces under blacklight. So you can see how the sapwood glows. So everyone can see that. And in fact, the fluorescence is one way that sometimes woods are identified, because there are certain species that fluoresce and others that don't. But it's kind of an interesting addition to the figure of it. And it's
will that fluoresce indefinitely?
Indefinitely, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's something to do with the molecular structure of it, and it's really prominent in the sapwood. So it's kind of an interesting feature of black locust.
Just black locust, none of the other locusts?
There's I think some of the other locusts do as well, and there's a whole bunch of species that fluoresce different colors.
I've got 3 in the backyard. I think one's going to have to come down.
But that's only the sapwood. Pretty much. It seems like the sapwood does it much more than the others. Yeah.
Will that make the M&Ms for us?
Yeah.
I think if you get like the multicolored one, the different holidays.
Go over the grape.
That's it, right? Yeah.
How did you discover that fluorescent?
I used to work for the Lancaster, the North Museum, the Lancaster Science Museum, and we did an exhibit on fluorescent, different things that fluoresce. So.
Yes.
Yeah. That's cool. That's it.
What I have here is a challenge piece. Like some other members, I can't resist looking at the pile of trash when I go to the compost facility. And this time, about a month ago, they were cut off kind of short for a wood turner there, about as long as they were in diameter. But they were fresh enough they hadn't yet checked. And I think it's all maple, despite the color here. And one piece had a branch coming out the side years ago. It had rotted off, but the bark was coming off it, and you could see on the surface the ripple of compression grain under the branch. And if you can...
Matches the color of his shirt.
And it's more dramatic on the bottom side. So I just chainsawed parallel to the slope of that piece that was sticking out the side, and cut this little like 1.5 inch thick piece out of there, and very happy with how it turned out. The remnants of the tree branch, the knot, is up here in this corner. And it was very wet, and I guess because I turned it down fairly thin, and then I just sat it on an air vent on my HVAC system overnight, and the next day it was dry enough to put a finish on.
What did you use, Barry?
What's that?
What was the finish?
This is Odie's oil, which I love for tiny pieces, but it's like trying to put honey. It's like trying to spread honey. It's not that it's thick. It just has a certain quality to it, or avoidance to it, that if you try and put it on a big piece, it's like it wants to go under your rag. It doesn't want to spread like an oil finish does, even though it is an oil.
That's not good for M&Ms, though. That only holds a few.
Yeah.
What's that?
No M&Ms for that. It's too small.
Okay. And then I have a tips and tricks that if you could bring that up, it's a bandsawing It's an elaborate, jaggedy version of what you see right here. Only you lay your log in there, you know, along that axis. And this is an old bandsaw blade that I cut into 4.5 inch or so length. And that's an entire 130-inch bandsaw in there in sections, and both sides are the tooth pointing up, so that when you start feeding it in, it can't begin to rotate, and when you're going back on the rear side, it can't rotate. The teeth are pointing up on both sides.
I think I saw those in the Tower of London.
I was going to say, Barry, what did your neighbor's kid do to piss you off?
Yeah, those Playboys.
It's probably good for home butchering too, but I don't know. But it can be adjusted out to. My bandsaw has about a 15-inch maximum height. This will take a 15-inch. Any bigger, and I'd be afraid of it trying to pull the whole thing over. So that's my tip and trick.
All right.